We all know people we can count on when we're in trouble. We depend on them, even when there's no immediate crisis. In the back of our minds, we know these folks will come through when times are tough. They always have. Meet the people of the American Red Cross.
When disaster strikes, we're there, providing emergency food, clothing, and shelter.
We operate the premier blood service in the United States.
We make sure that the blood needed for emergencies is available on time, saving millions of lives.
We form the most extensive emergency network in the United States.
But we do much more than respond to immediate crises. We offer health and safety education to individuals, teaching them how to best prevent and cope with emergencies.
And we provide information about major health issues, such as the facts about AIDS.
We also provide the emergency communication link for military personnel and their families worldwide.
And together with the International Red Cross, we provide emergency assistance to people suffering from disasters overseas.
The American Red Cross is a name for some of our neighbors. More than 1.5 million volunteers around the country who can help us through an emergency when we need them.
What? Whose truck is this? It's my truck. Well, you want to move it? I had to wait, now you can wait your turn. Let's go, come on. If you want it done any sooner, you can go and do it yourself.
That sounded serious. Excuse me a minute, I better check this out.
What happened?
I didn't see him.
Oh, no.
I didn't see them.
What happened?
He was right in front of me, so I swerved to miss him.
This is my fault.
So still. Why isn't he moving?
Is he dead?
No, he's bleeding.
Don't touch them.
He needs help. Shouldn't we do something?
I'm a doctor. Isn't anyone gonna help? I wonder if someone's called an ambulance. There's gotta be someone else who can help. Yeah, they probably have. Help! Get me out of here.
I don't work here. What can I do?
somebody! Get me out of here!
Isn't anyone gonna help?
In an emergency, you can make a difference. You may even save a life. The emergency action steps, check, call, care, will guide your actions so that you help in the most effective way. Check the scene and the victim. Call 911 or your local emergency number for an ambulance. And care for the victim until more advanced help can arrive. Begin by checking the scene to make sure that it is safe for you, the victim, and any bystanders. Take in the whole picture. Look for clues about what caused the emergency, the number of victims, and what may be wrong with them. Look for anything you can easily correct to make the scene safer.
Susanna, keep those pallets from falling. Hey, back that thing out of here.
Get this off me.
Somebody get that first aid kit. See if you can stop the bleeding. I'll check on Carlos.
Oh.
Is there anything I can do? Yeah, check on the driver, would you?
Press down with this.
Okay.
Easy.
Then check the victim. Check first for life-threatening conditions.
Carlos. Carlos.
Life-threatening conditions include a victim who is unconscious, has trouble breathing or is not breathing, has pain or pressure in the chest, has no pulse, or is bleeding severely.
Carlos, are you okay?
Next, call for an ambulance.
Call 911. Tell them there's been an accident. We've got 2 people hurt and 1 is unconscious.
Okay.
If the victim is unconscious, you will have to check closely. With a seriously ill or injured person, it is important to get professional help quickly, so call fast. Whenever possible, ask a bystander to make the call for you.
Yeah, we've had an accident.
When calling, give the dispatcher the necessary information.
Elm Street.
Be prepared to give the exact location of the emergency, the telephone number from where the call is being made, the caller's name, what happened, the number and condition of the victims, and what help is being given.
13,
Don't hang up until the dispatcher hangs up first. Some EMS dispatchers may be able to tell you how best to care for the victim.
Yeah, that's right.
Care for the victim until help arrives.
All right, take it on up.
Care for life-threatening emergencies before those that are not life-threatening.
Are you okay? Do you hurt anywhere else?
No, I'm all right.
Okay.
While you are waiting for the ambulance, watch for changes in the victim's condition. Help the victim rest comfortably and reassure him.
There you go. I'm gonna wrap this up. Just take it easy. Here we go. It's gonna be okay.
In any serious injury or illness, your decision to act is vital to the victim's survival. You can always do something to help. By following the emergency action steps, check, call, and care, you will be able to provide the best care in any emergency situation.
One is unconscious. Please start making it.
To check a victim who appears to be unconscious, begin by finding out if he has any life-threatening conditions.
Are you all right? Can you hear me?
You should be able to answer these basic questions. Is the victim conscious? Is he breathing? Does he have a pulse? Is he bleeding severely? Answering these questions may be as simple as talking with the victim.
Hey, you all right?
No, I hurt my arm.
If the victim is able to speak to you, you know that she is conscious, is breathing, and has a pulse. As you talk, look to see if she is bleeding. To check a person who seems to be unconscious, follow these steps. Tap and shout.
Are you all right? Can you hear me?
If the victim does not respond, look, listen, and feel for breathing. If there is no breathing, give 2 slow breaths. Then check for a pulse and check for severe bleeding. When a victim appears to be unconscious, you'll have to check carefully to learn about his condition. To begin, tap and shout to see if the victim responds.
Are you all right? Can you hear me?
If the person does not respond, assume he is unconscious and send someone else to call the emergency number.
Help, this man's unconscious. Call 911.
Position yourself so that your face is close to the victim's mouth and nose. Look, listen, and feel for breathing for about 5 seconds. If the victim is not breathing or you can't tell, roll him onto his back. Place one hand at the back of the neck and the other on the hip. Support the head and neck and gently roll the victim toward you, keeping the head and back in a straight line. Tilt the head back and lift the chin. This opens the airway. The airway is the path that air travels to get from the nose and mouth to the lungs. When an unconscious person is on his back, the tongue relaxes and falls back into the throat, blocking the airway. Tilting the head back and lifting the chin pulls the tongue away from the back of the throat and opens the airway, allowing air to go in. Put your ear close to the victim's mouth and nose. Look, listen, and feel for breathing for about 5 seconds. Look to see if the chest rises and falls while you listen and feel for breathing. If he is still not breathing, give 2 slow breaths. You'll learn how to give breaths in another lesson. Next, check for a pulse. Using 2 or 3 fingers, find the Adam's apple. Slide your fingers toward you and down into the groove at the side of the neck. Check for a pulse for 5 to 10 seconds. Keep the head tilted back while you check for severe bleeding. Look carefully from head to toe. The care you provide will depend on what conditions you find when you are checking the victim. If you must leave an unconscious victim for any reason, such as to call your emergency number, place him on his side to help keep his airway open. Position one arm over the victim's head and roll him onto his side. Bend the top knee and move it forward to hold him in this position. Keep his face angled toward the ground. In this position, if the victim vomits, his airway will stay clear. If you think a victim has an injury to the head or spine, try to open the airway by only lifting the chin, because tilting the head back could cause further injury. If you can't get air in, tilt the head back slightly, just far enough to allow your breaths to go into the lungs. For a child or infant, you probably won't need to tilt the head as far back in order to open the airway. Here, you can see the difference between how far you might tilt an adult's head compared to how far you might tilt the head of a child or an infant. Tilt the head back only far enough for your breaths to go in. When checking for a pulse, check a child's pulse in the same place you check an adult's, using the artery in the neck. Check an infant's pulse on the inside of the upper arm, between the elbow and shoulder. In review, to check a victim who appears to be unconscious, follow these steps. Tap and shout.
Are you all right? Can you hear me?
If the victim doesn't respond, look, listen, and feel for breathing. If he is not breathing, or you can't tell, position the victim on his back. Look, listen, and feel for breathing again. If he is not breathing, give 2 slow breaths. Then, check for a pulse. And check for severe bleeding. The care you give will depend on what you find.
If the shawl doesn't look good on me, I can always try it on my old piano.
When checking a conscious adult, look first for any life-threatening conditions.
This is ridiculous. I can't seem to get up.
Begin by talking to the person and any bystanders to find out what happened.
I've had some first aid training. Can I help you?
Yeah, sure. But please.
Well, what's your name?
Maxine Frank. But you can call me Maxine. You know, I really hate that name, Maxine.
If the person can talk to you, you know she is conscious, breathing, and has a pulse. Look for severe bleeding.
Maxine, but they don't call me Maxine. They call me...
Whoa. I wouldn't try to get up just yet. Relax, Maxine. Everything's going to be okay. Tell me how you felt.
I missed the step. They don't make steps like they used to.
Does anything hurt?
My ankle. I think I did something to my ankle.
Are you hurt anywhere else?
No, I don't think so.
Well, just to be sure, Maxine, I'm going to check that you're not hurt anywhere else.
Once you have determined there are no obvious life-threatening conditions, check the person from head to toe. Note anything unusual, including bleeding, cuts, bruises, bumps, depressions, or pain. Start at the head. Notice if the person is drowsy or confused.
What day is it?
It's Friday. I always meet my granddaughter every Friday at this time, and now I'm going to be late.
Try to relax. I'm sure your granddaughter will understand.
She won't, because she
Look for abnormal breathing,
won't know where she can
including gasping, gurgling, or unusually fast, slow, or painful breathing.
Does it hurt when you breathe?
No.
Okay, Maxine, I'm going to check your skin.
Okay, but don't you mess up my makeup now. Took me almost an hour to put this face on this morning.
Notice how the skin looks and feels.
Does your head hurt anywhere?
No, it's fine. Can you, maybe you can help me get up now?
Let's just...
Have the person move each part of her body that doesn't hurt.
Can you shrug your shoulders for me? Looking good. And now take a deep breath for me, Maxine.
Asking her to take a deep breath enables you to check the chest and abdomen.
You married?
No. Well, let's get back to this. Maxine, move your arms. Does it hurt anywhere?
No, I don't think so.
Good. Now, can you wiggle your fingers for me?
How am I doing?
You're doing great. Now let's check your hips and legs, but don't move anything that's going to hurt you.
Okay.
Can you move your left leg?
Yeah.
Very good. Whoa. Easy. Yep, you definitely did something to your ankle. It's pretty swollen. But I'm not sure how bad it is. Maxine, I'm going to call for an ambulance.
An ambulance? Why? I have to meet my granddaughter.
We don't know how badly your ankle's injured. It's a good idea if we have someone else check it before you start walking on it again.
Okay.
Don't worry, Maxine. I'll stay with you.
You're going to stay with me? You're a sweet boy. Would you like to meet my granddaughter?
If you're not sure about the person's condition, call 911 or your local emergency number. When checking a conscious child, follow the same steps as when checking an adult.
He's hurt.
But because some children cannot talk or are shy or uncooperative, it may not be easy to complete your check. To overcome these challenges, explain what you're going to do before you do it. Use words that children will understand. Don't separate a young child from loved ones. If the child is anxious, start at the toes and move toward the head. And comfort and reassure the child. To review, when checking a conscious adult, look first for any life-threatening conditions. Begin by talking to the person. Then check from head to toe for any signals of illness or injury. Look for bruises, cuts, bumps, or depressions. Check the head, irregularities in breathing, skin color, and temperature. Check the shoulders, chest, and abdomen, the fingers, hands, and arms, and the hips and legs. And comfort and reassure the victim during your check.
When a conscious person can no longer speak, cough, or breathe, he may be choking.
Keep coughing. Keep coughing.
Use abdominal thrusts to force the object out. Position your hands and give quick upward thrusts. If a person is coughing forcefully, encourage him to keep coughing.
Keep coughing. Keep coughing. Keep coughing.
If he begins coughing weakly or can no longer speak, cough, or breathe, give abdominal thrust to help clear the airway. Stand behind the victim and position your hands. Find the navel. Make a fist with your other hand and place the thumb side of your fist against the middle of the victim's abdomen, just above the navel. Grab the fist with your other hand and give quick upward thrusts. Each thrust should be a separate attempt to force the object out. Repeat the thrusts until the object is coughed up, until the victim starts to breathe or cough forcefully on his own, or until the victim becomes unconscious. If the victim loses consciousness, gently lower him to the ground. You will learn how to care for an unconscious choking victim in another lesson.
Keep coughing. Keep coughing.
To review, if a conscious person is choking, give abdominal thrusts. Position your hands and give quick upward thrusts until the object is forced out or until the victim can breathe or cough forcefully.
If you determine that an unconscious victim is not breathing, give 2 slow breaths. Then, check for a pulse and severe bleeding. If she has a pulse but is not breathing, you'll have to breathe for her using a technique called rescue breathing. To do rescue breathing, give 1 slow breath about every 5 seconds. Recheck pulse and breathing about every minute. Whenever you need to give breaths to a victim, keep the head tilted back and pinch the nose shut. Seal your lips tightly around the mouth and breathe into the victim. Each breath should last about 1.5 seconds. When doing rescue breathing, give one slow breath about every 5 seconds. Watch the chest to see that your breaths are going in. The chest should rise gently with each breath. Avoid breathing in too hard or too long so that the air goes into the lungs and not into the stomach. Recheck pulse and breathing about every minute. Feel for the pulse for about 5 seconds. If the person has a pulse but is still not breathing, continue rescue breathing, one slow breath about every 5 seconds. Continue rescue breathing until the victim begins to breathe on her own, someone else arrives and takes over, or you are too tired to go on. If you find that the victim does not have a pulse, begin CPR. You will learn CPR in another lesson. If a person's mouth or jaw is injured, or if you have trouble making a tight seal over her mouth, breathe through the nose. Tilt the head back and close the mouth by pushing on the chin. Seal your mouth around her nose and breathe into it. Let the mouth fall open between breaths to let the air out. If the victim vomits, turn her onto one side and wipe out the mouth. Return the victim to her back and continue rescue breathing. To review, if you determine that a person is not breathing, give 2 slow breaths. Then, check for a pulse and severe bleeding. If she has a pulse but is not breathing, begin rescue breathing. Give 1 slow breath about every 5 seconds. Recheck pulse and breathing about every minute. If you can't breathe through the victim's mouth, breathe through the nose.
You may feel uncomfortable with the thought of mouth-to-mouth contact, especially with someone you don't know. Your worry is understandable, even though the chance of getting a disease during rescue breathing is low. There are, however, commercial devices which can help protect you from blood and other body fluids. Some devices are simple shields, small enough to fit in your pocket or first aid kit. Just place the barrier over the victim's mouth and breathe through the opening provided. Some shields have mouthpieces. This one fits into the victim's mouth. Seal your mouth over the opening and breathe for the victim. Other barriers may be masks, which have one-way valves. To assemble this mask, push out the dome and attach the one-way valve. Place the mask so that it covers the victim's mouth and nose. Seal the mask with your thumbs and breathe into the valve. The one-way valve opens when your breath goes in, then closes so you don't breathe the escaping air. Remember, diseases are seldom transmitted during rescue breathing, but devices are available to help protect you if you choose to use them.
If you breathe for a victim and your breaths won't go in, follow these steps. Retilt the head and give breaths again. If breaths still do not go in, assume that the airway is blocked. Position your hands. Give up to 5 abdominal thrusts. Sweep out the mouth. Then tilt the head back and give breaths again. Repeat these steps until your breaths go in or until the victim begins to breathe on her own. If you are giving breaths to a victim and your breaths do not go in, you might not have tilted the head back far enough. Retilt the head. This time, tilt the head farther back and give breaths again. If your breaths still won't go in, assume the airway is blocked. Straddle the victim's legs and position your hands to give abdominal thrusts. Place the heel of one hand against the middle of the victim's abdomen, just above the navel. Place your other hand on top. Give up to 5 abdominal thrusts. Press into the abdomen with quick upward thrusts. This forces the air in the lungs to push the object out. Then, sweep out the mouth. Grasp both the tongue and lower jaw between your thumb and fingers and lift the jaw. Slide your finger down along the inside of the cheek using a hooking motion to sweep the object out. Then, tilt the head back and give breaths again. Watch for the chest to rise and fall. If breaths still do not go in, repeat thrusts, sweep, and breaths until you can breathe into the victim or until the victim begins to breathe on her own. To review, if you breathe for a victim and your breaths won't go in, retilt the head, and give breaths again. If breaths still do not go in, assume that the airway is blocked. Position your hands, give up to 5 abdominal thrusts, sweep out the mouth, then tilt the head back and give breaths again. Repeat these steps until your breaths go in or until the victim begins to breathe on her own.
Each year, approximately 500,000 people die of a heart attack, most within 2 hours of the onset of the signals.
Thank you. Well, Kathy really enjoyed the party. Of course, you should have seen her face when the door opened. It was worth its weight in gold. We're getting away this weekend so she can get some rest.
Oh, that's really wonderful. And she's going to love you forever.
If I'm lucky. If I'm lucky. You done?
Almost. Yep, there you go.
Ah, thank you.
Jack.
Here you go. Thank you.
Hey, Jack, you got the news hound after you again.
Jack, there's been a bit of a change tonight. We want to lead with a story about the tornado in Harper County since we have somebody out there in the satellite band. There's also a couple of long reports tonight, one on the department store layoffs and some visiting circus. That's been really a slow news. You know, I just got off the phone with... Hey, you okay?
Fine. It's just... I just ate something that didn't agree with me.
You got to go on soon. You going to make it?
I'll be fine.
Hey, Jack, can you talk to Susan for a minute?
I was at the game. Yeah, sure was. Did you have an extra ticket and you didn't call? Great crowd. Oh, okay. I'll make sure you're fine. Hey, Jack, did you catch that game last night?
Jack? Hi, Jack. Seems it's been another interesting day in the world again. I had a heck of a time getting back from the city hall. Jack.
You got 5 minutes, folks. 5 minutes.
Peter, can you excuse me for a minute? I'll be right back. Grab my papers, will you?
What happened?
Not good.
No, I'm Jack, are you sure you're going to be okay?
I'm fine. Let's get on with it.
1 minute, folks. 1 minute.
Okay, I've looked at this. Let's go.
Okay, I'll be right back there.
Music's up. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3.
Good evening. I'm Susan Sheldon.
And I'm Jack Crane. Welcome to Live at 5. In the news tonight, Harper County residents were given a rude awakening by Mother Nature today. Around 4 a.m., a tornado sped through the county, playing its own game of jump rope. Tom Tildell has the report.
The sudden rainfall in the valley caused the Silver Creek to overflow its banks, resulting in minor flooding.
Steady on
Local Red Cross volunteers were called in to help out in the area.
Jeez,
Emma
what's the
Sutter's
matter with
house
Jack?
minor damage.
He's sweating so bad. He usually doesn't do that.
Jack,
do we need to pull you out of there?
$5,000. For Live at 5, this is Tom Sildell reporting.
Fortunately, there are no reported casualties from the storm. At least 2 businesses suffered damage from a fire on Sycamore Street. Flames and heavy smoke were pouring from the buildings when firefighters arrived. The buildings housed a clothing store and novelty shop. Shop owners say they don't have fire insurance. The cause of the blaze is unknown.
Other department stores. He does not look good. This is not indigestion. Susan, call a commercial break.
And Seedwicks are facing serious layoffs. That and more coming up next on Live at 5.
Jack, you don't look good. I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
Jack, we're going to get you off the set. You can't go on like this.
No, Janet, the rest of the news.
Susan's got it.
Don't worry, Jack. You don't feel well.
We can cover. Come on, Jack.
I apologize, everyone. I guess I'm not feeling well enough. I'm having trouble breathing.
Maybe you should go lie down, Jack.
There's a sofa on the morning set right around the wall. I'll help.
Get him some water.
Susan, prompt her 2.
Out of commercial, 5, 4, 3.
We seem to be experiencing some difficulties here. Jack has been taken ill. He is being taken care of, and we will keep you informed at the end of the newscast. The CEO of Redstone's announced last...
Okay, Jack, take it easy.
Let me get my jacket off.
Okay, watch your step. Let's lay down here on the couch.
My chest. There's this pain, like a squeezing.
Should we call an ambulance?
Oh, no ambulance. Call my doctor. Dr. Berger. The number's in my Rolodex.
Take it easy, buddy.
Doctor's office. Hello. Yes, is Dr. Berger in?
He's gone for the day.
Can he be reached?
I can page him. What's the problem?
I'm calling for Jack Crane, a patient of his. He's sick. I'm afraid it could be his heart.
Is he having any pain in his chest or trouble breathing?
Yes?
Okay, hang up and call 911 right away. I'll page Dr. Berger. Emergency line. How can I help you?
Yes. Hello. We need an ambulance.
What's the problem, ma'am?
It's my coworker. He's having trouble breathing, and he's got chest pains. I'm afraid it could be his heart. And...
Okay, ma'am. Calm down. An ambulance is on the way. What's your name?
Janet Mendez.
You're calling from 522-3466 KJTV Studio at 117 Saratoga Avenue?
Yes, that's right.
What floor are you on?
First floor, Studio 3.
Miss Mendez, can you have someone meet the ambulance crew at the front door?
Yes, I can have somebody down there right away.
They'll be there right away.
Peter, there's an ambulance on the way. Can you please go meet it?
Sure. An ambulance? You shouldn't have.
I called your doctor, and the nurse advised me to call. Look, it's better to be safe than sorry.
Oh, wow.
She's right, Jack. Take it easy.
I'm so glad you're here. We gotta hurry.
Do you know when the pain started?
I don't know. It was during the news. He looks really bad.
Okay.
He's over here.
Good afternoon, sir. My name's Julie. I'm a paramedic. What's your name?
Jack Crane.
Okay, Mr. Crane. What's the problem?
Got this pressure on my chest. It's like someone's standing on it.
Okay, and how long ago did this start?
When I came back from a report about 2 hours ago.
Okay. Jeff, could you get him on some O2 and get me a set of vital signs, please?
Right. Many victims deny that they are having a heart attack. They may not want to admit it to themselves or others. They will come up with other excuses to explain what they feel.
We're going to give you oxygen to help your breathing.
I'm just going to be sticking these on your chest. Won't hurt.
Alice, Would you please go call his wife?
110 in irregular, respirations 18.
Mr. Crane, we're going to give you some medication. It's nitroglycerin tablet, small little white pill, and it should help you with your chest pain.
Proper care for a heart attack depends on recognizing a set of signals and taking action. The most significant signal of a heart attack is chest discomfort or pain.
Springfield Hospital. Hi, this is Medic 20.
It could start as just an uncomfortable pressure or tightness, or it can be a severe pain. The pain is often in the center of the chest, behind the breastbone, which may spread to the shoulders, arms, neck, jaw, or back.
Other department stores in the area are worried about unemployment.
Other signals include sweating, nausea, shortness of breath, and general ill feeling or appearance.
Coming up next on Live at 5.
The chances of this man surviving are good because professional rescuers arrived quickly. Because his co-workers took speedy action, they very possibly have saved his life.
Jack, we've called Kathy. She's going to meet you at the hospital.
Okay, let's go.
You can help reduce deaths from cardiovascular disease by recognizing the early signals of a heart attack and taking action.
Lift this up.
If you check a victim and find that she is not breathing and has no pulse, begin CPR immediately. Find your hand position. Position your shoulders over your hands. Compress the chest 15 times.
9 and 10 and 11 and 12 and 13, 14 and 15.
And give 2 slow breaths.
And 13 and 14 and 15.
Repeat compression and breathing cycles. After about 1 minute, recheck pulse and breathing. If the victim still does not have a pulse, continue compression and breathing cycles. Recheck pulse and breathing every few minutes.
1, 2, 3.
If you check the victim and find that there is no breathing and no pulse, begin CPR. Kneel at the victim's side and find your hand position. Locate the notch at the lower end of the breastbone. Place the heel of one hand just above this notch, in about the center of the breastbone. Place your other hand on top. Lean forward to position your shoulders over your hands. Keep your arms straight and compress the chest 15 times.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
Compress the breastbone about 2 inches. When you complete 15 compressions, move to the head.
15.
Tilt the head back, lift the chin, and give 2 slow breaths. Repeat compression and breathing cycles.
1, 2 and 3 and 4. And
Allow the chest to return to its normal position between each compression.
11 and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15.
The chest should rise gently with each breath. Do 15 compressions in about 10 seconds.
2
Counting out loud will help you maintain an even pace and rhythm.
And 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15.
Press with the heel of your hand, not your fingers. Keep the down and up motion smooth, pushing with the weight of your upper body, not with your arms. After about a minute of compressions and breaths, recheck pulse and breathing for about 5 seconds. If there is still no pulse, continue compression and breathing cycles.
2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6.
Recheck pulse and breathing every few minutes.
11 and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15.
Once you start CPR, continue until another person takes over, until you are exhausted, or until medical help arrives and takes over.
1 and 2 and 3.
To review, if a victim is not breathing and has no pulse, begin CPR. Find your hand position. Position your shoulders over your hands. Compress the chest 15 times.
11 and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15.
And give 2 slow breaths. Repeat compression and breathing cycles. After about 1 minute, recheck pulse and breathing. If the victim still has no pulse, continue compression and breathing cycles. Recheck pulse and breathing every few minutes.
1, 2, 3.
Would you hurry up, please?
I'm hurrying. Traffic is very heavy.
This idiot in front of you keeps weaving in and out.
Right here?
No, left, turn left.
A motor vehicle crash. People with injuries requiring immediate care. We've all wondered how we would respond to an emergency like this one. Injuries are one of the most significant health problems in our nation today. So common, in fact, that statistics indicate most of us will have a severe injury at some time in our lives. Knowing what causes injuries and what the main types of injuries are may help you care for an injury should it happen. Motor vehicle crashes are the leading cause of injury-related deaths. And motor vehicle crashes cost the most money. But no matter what the cause, when you're called upon to care for an injury, follow your emergency action steps. Check, call, care. Check the scene for safety. When you are sure the scene is safe, then check the victim. If you are certain there are no life-threatening emergencies, check head to toe for less serious problems.
Call an ambulance. That's 911. Tell them we have a car accident.
Call 911 or your emergency number for an ambulance, and then give care for what you find until more advanced help arrives. Because the care you give depends on what you find, It's important to know what clues of injuries to look for when you check the victim. There are two main types of injuries. Injuries to the skin and soft tissues, such as wounds or burns, and injuries to muscles, bones, and joints. Some wounds break the skin. They are easy to recognize because bleeding is visible. When a wound is open, germs can get in through the break in the skin and cause infection. Other wounds are not as obvious. An injury such as one caused by a fall from a height can cause bleeding under the skin where it is not visible. These closed wounds can be serious.
What happened? He fell.
Don't move. Lie still. Go to the sleeping bag. And my coat. Don't move. Lie still.
When the cause of an injury is severe, you should suspect internal bleeding and check for these clues. Tender, swollen, bruised, or hard areas of the body, such as the abdomen. Skin that feels cool or moist or looks pale or bluish. Vomiting or coughing up blood. Excessive thirst. Becoming confused, faint, drowsy, or unconscious. Caring for open wounds includes controlling bleeding and preventing infection. Remember that most bleeding will usually stop by itself after a few minutes. For major wounds with severe bleeding, you must control the bleeding immediately. It's also important to clean and cover minor wounds to prevent infection. If you suspect serious internal bleeding, call for an ambulance immediately. But if the person has a minor closed wound, like a bruise, applying cold will help control the pain and bleeding.
With glamorous merchandise, fabulous and exciting bonus prizes, including this. Experience the sporty,
You see my purse, honey?
Yeah, it's right out here. Ah!
A burn is a special type of soft tissue injury caused by exposure to heat, chemicals, or electricity. Check the scene for safety, since burns caused by chemicals or electricity can be a danger to you. Burns by heat are the most common. There are three types of burns. Burns that may only affect the surface layers of the skin. Burns that are more severe, that form blisters and affect deeper layers of the skin. And the most severe burns, which can affect the skin and soft tissue down to the bone.
Well, you don't mind if you drink out of a cup, do you? You do. I bet they're pretty. I do too. You do? Just wait right here. I'll be right back.
To care for a burn, follow these general steps. First, stop the burning. Then cool the burn with large amounts of cool water. And then cover it with dry, clean dressings to help prevent infection. You must call for an ambulance if the victim is a child or elderly person, or if the victim has difficulty breathing, has burns that cover more than one body part, has burns to the head, neck, hands, feet, or genitals, or has burns from chemicals, explosions, or electricity. If the burn is caused by chemicals, flush the burned area with cool running water to stop the burning and cool the burn. If the burn is electrical, check for life-threatening conditions. If there are none, cover the burn and care for the victim until the ambulance arrives. A second type of injury is an injury to a muscle, bone, or joint. Muscles can be strained. Bones can be broken. And joints can be sprained or dislocated. Most muscle, bone, or joint injuries are painful, but may or may not be serious.
Can you walk?
I don't think so.
Always suspect a serious muscle, bone, or joint injury when the following signals or clues are present. The person cannot use the affected part normally. There are visible bone fragments or the feeling of a snap, pop, or bones grating. there is significant bruising, swelling, or other deformity. Some of these clues are not always easy to recognize. Sometimes comparing the same part on the other side of the body will help. For injuries to a muscle, bone, or joint, the best care you can give is rest, ice, and elevation. If you suspect a serious injury to a muscle, bone, or joint, keep the injured part from moving. The ground can be used to immobilize an injured part. If you have to move the victim, first splint the injury. Do not elevate a severe injury unless it has been splinted.
Sam! Oh, Lord!
In any serious injury, a condition called shock is likely to develop. Shock happens when the circulatory system fails to deliver blood to all parts of the body. Shock is a life-threatening condition.
See about Sam.
I didn't see him.
How are you feeling, sir? Did you hit your head? Are you hurt anywhere?
My hand. I better go see if they're all right.
No, just it'd be best if you stayed still. Someone's helping them.
But I think
Try not to move.
Always watch for the following signals or clues of shock when caring for any victim: restlessness or irritability, changes in consciousness, pale, cool, moist skin, rapid breathing, rapid pulse. By caring for the specific injury, you will be doing all you can to minimize shock. To review, whether at work or at home, injuries are likely to happen. If an injury does occur, follow your 3 emergency action steps. Check, call, care. Check the scene for safety and the victim for signals of injury. Call 911 or your emergency number for an ambulance if you find signals of serious injury. And care for conditions you find. And remember, whenever you give care, comfort and reassure the victim. Keep the person from getting chilled or overheated, and watch for any changes in the person's condition. When an injury occurs, knowing how to respond enables you to give the best care possible until an ambulance arrives.
If you find that a person is bleeding severely, you must take steps to control the bleeding. Follow these steps. Cover the wound and press firmly. Elevate and bandage. If bleeding does not stop, squeeze the artery against the bone. Most bleeding will stop on its own within a few minutes, but severe bleeding must be controlled immediately. To begin, cover the wound with a sterile dressing or clean cloth and press firmly against the wound.
Could you hold this for me?
Then, elevate the body part, in this case, the leg. If possible, raise the wound above the level of the heart to help slow bleeding. Next, use a roller bandage to bandage the wound. Cover the dressing completely using overlapping turns. Secure the bandage by taping or tying off the end. If blood soaks through the bandage, place additional dressings on top of the first dressing and wrap with another bandage. If bleeding still does not stop, find the appropriate artery and squeeze the artery against the bone. Major arteries carry blood from the heart to all parts of the body. Two of these arteries are the brachial arteries in the arms and the femoral arteries in the legs. Squeezing an artery against a bone will slow the flow of blood beyond that point. The point where you press on the artery is called a pressure point. There are 4 pressure points that are commonly used to help control bleeding. The pressure points for the arms are on the inside of the upper arm, midway between the shoulder and the elbow. For the legs, the pressure points are at the front of the leg where the hip bends. Watch again as this rescuer finds the femoral artery at the bend in the hip and uses the heel of her hand to squeeze the artery against the bone. Keep the leg elevated and maintain direct pressure on the wound and on the pressure point until medical help arrives. Following these steps will help to prevent infection and minimize shock. If the wound is on the victim's arm, steps for controlling bleeding are the same. Cover the wound and press firmly, elevate, and bandage.
Hold that right there.
If bleeding does not stop, add additional dressings and bandage. If bleeding still doesn't stop, squeeze the artery against the bone. In this case, use the brachial artery on the inside of the upper arm. Press firmly with your fingers, squeezing the artery against the underlying bone. If a wound includes an object which is impaled in the body, do not remove the object. The object itself may be helping to stop the flow of blood. Removing the object may cause more damage and bleeding. Try to keep both the object and the body parts still to avoid further injury. Place dressings around the object. Press lightly against the wound. Place several bulky dressings around the object to keep it from moving. Apply a roller bandage over the dressings and around the object. Use overlapping turns until the dressings and object are secured in place. In review, to control external bleeding, follow these steps. Cover the wound and press firmly. Elevate and bandage. If bleeding does not stop, apply additional dressings and bandage. If bleeding still does not stop, squeeze the artery against the bone. Remember, controlling severe bleeding helps prevent infection and minimize shock. If the wound has an impaled object, follow the same steps and use bulky dressings to hold the object in place. Bandage around the object.
When you suspect that a person has an injury to a muscle, bone, or joint, you may have to splint the injury. Splinting is a technique used to keep the injured body part from moving. A splint can be anatomic, soft, or rigid. An anatomic splint uses another part of the victim's body to immobilize an injured area. For instance, a leg can be splinted to a leg, a finger to a finger, or an arm to the chest. A soft splint can be a folded blanket or towel or a pillow. Soft splints can be easily shaped to fit around an injured area. A triangular bandage, when tied as a sling, is another kind of soft splint used to support the arm. A rigid splint can be a board, magazine, cardboard, or newspaper. Any of these methods can be used to minimize movement. The method you choose will depend on the materials available and the location of the injury. Try to splint an injury in the position you find it. A splint should include the areas above and below the site of the injury. For example, if the injury is to a joint, immobilize the bones above and below the joint. If the injury is to a bone, immobilize the joints above and below that bone. No matter what splinting method you choose, always follow these steps. Support the injured area. Check for feeling, warmth, and color. Place the splint. Tie the splint in place and recheck feeling, warmth, and color. An anatomic splint uses the victim's body to splint the injured area. When using an anatomic splint on the leg, support the injured area above and below the site of the injury. If the injured leg is against the ground is supporting the injured area. Check for feeling, warmth, and color. Find out if the person has feeling in his toes and if the skin is warm or cool. To place the splint, thread several folded triangular bandages under the injured leg. Guide each triangular bandage through the gap under either the knee or ankle and slide it into position. This will help minimize movement of the injured leg. Place the folded triangular bandages above and below the site of the injury. Then, move the healthy leg next to the injured leg. Tie the splint in place by tying the ends of each bandage together. Do not tie any of them directly over the injured area. Finally, make sure the splint is not too tight. Recheck for feeling, warmth, and color. If the person has lost feeling in his toes, or if the skin has become cool or pale, loosen the splint a little. Other parts of the body can also be used as anatomic splints. For instance, an injured finger can be splinted to another finger. Or an injured arm can be splinted to the chest. Binding the arm to the chest is also an effective way of immobilizing injuries to the shoulder, ribs, or chest. A soft splint, such as a folded blanket, can be used to splint an injured ankle. To begin, support the injured area. Check for feeling, warmth, and color below the injury.
Can you feel this?
If the victim is wearing a shoe, you will only be able to check for feeling. To place the splint, thread several folded triangular bandages above and below the injured area. Guide them through the space under the knee or ankle and slide them into position. Place 2 above the ankle and 1 at the heel. Gently wrap the folded blanket around the injured area. Because it is soft, it will mold itself around the injury. Tie the splint in place so that the foot and ankle don't move. Finally, recheck for feeling, warmth, and color to make sure the splint is not too tight. Soft splints can also be used on other parts of the body. This towel is immobilizing an injured forearm. An injured hand can be immobilized by placing a roll of gauze into the palm and then carefully wrapping the whole fist with a roller bandage. A sling is a special kind of soft splint used for immobilizing an injured arm or shoulder. To begin, support the injured area. If possible, have the victim help you. Feel the fingers to check for feeling, warmth, and color. To place the sling, thread one end of a triangular bandage under the injured arm and over the uninjured shoulder. Position the point of the triangular bandage at the elbow. Bring the other end across the chest and over the opposite shoulder. Tie the ends of the sling at the side of the neck. Next, use a folded triangular bandage to bind the sling to the chest. This binder prevents movement of the arm. Finally, recheck the fingers for feeling, warmth, and color to make sure the splint is not too tight.
How does that feel?
It's secure.
A rigid splint, such as a padded board, can be used to immobilize an injured forearm. To begin, support the injured area. If possible, have the victim help you. Check feeling, warmth, and color at a site below the injury. In this case, check the hand and fingers. Next, place the splint so that it supports the areas above and below the injury. Padding the palm keeps the hand in a natural position. Next, tie the splint in place. Place bandages above and below the site of the injury. Then, recheck feeling, warmth, and color
Can you feel that?
to be sure the bandages are not too tight. This splint has immobilized the joint below the injury, the wrist. But the joint above the injury, the elbow, can still move. To prevent movement of the elbow, you can use a sling and a binder. Recheck feeling, warmth, and color to make sure the splint is not too tight. Rigid splints can also be used to immobilize other parts of the body, like an injured leg or an injured finger. To review, anatomic splints, soft splints, slings, and rigid splints are all effective ways to immobilize an injury to a muscle, bone, or joint. Try to splint the injury in the position you found. Splint above and below the injured area. Follow these basic steps. Support the injured area. Check for feeling, warmth, and color. Place the splint. Tie the splint in place. And recheck feeling, warmth, and color.
Tom and Harriet Beck were the lucky winners of this past weekend Super Lottery draw. The pair came forward to claim their $11 million prize.
Dad, are we gonna bet? Huh? Well, Dad, you have the wrong channel. Game's on 12. Oh, yeah.
Matter? Something on your mind? Huh? Well, you're not paying any attention to the game. Is anything wrong?
Oh, no, just a little upset stomach, that's all.
How about some ginger?
When someone becomes suddenly ill, it can be hard to tell what is wrong. Sometimes you won't notice obvious signals or clues. Often, the clues are confusing, making it difficult to determine if the victim's condition is an emergency requiring an ambulance. In some instances, you may know what is wrong. For example, you may know the person is diabetic, or has a history of heart problems or stroke. Or you may see signs that indicate poisoning. Or you know the person has been exposed to extremes of either hot or cold. Unfortunately, more often than not, you won't know what has caused a person to become suddenly ill. But by the end of the course, you will know what to do. Follow your emergency action steps. Check, call, care. First, check the scene and the victim. Look around the environment. Try and figure out what the victim was doing. Take in the whole picture.
Do you need anything else?
Then, check the victim.
Look, maybe I just need to lie down for a minute.
When a person becomes suddenly ill, he or she often looks and feels ill. The person may be able to tell you what is wrong. Learn to recognize these signals or clues of sudden illness. Feeling lightheaded, dizzy, confused, or weak. Changes in skin color with pale or flushed skin or sweating. Nausea or vomiting. Diarrhea. Some sudden illnesses may also include changes in consciousness, seizure, paralysis or inability to move, slurred speech, difficulty seeing, severe headache, breathing difficulty, persistent pressure or pain. Sometimes these signals may come and go, making it difficult to know whether to call for an ambulance.
Call the doctor.
Oh, don't be silly.
Something's wrong. Greg, watch your father.
Since calling for an ambulance is often the most important action you can take to help the victim,
Hello.
it's critical that you call if the victim is unconscious, unusually confused, or seems to be losing consciousness, has trouble breathing, or is breathing in a strange way, has persistent chest pain or pressure, has pressure or pain in the abdomen that does not go away, is vomiting or passing blood, has seizures severe headaches, or slurred speech. Appears to have been poisoned.
Mr. Smith? Mr. Smith, are you all right?
I don't feel well.
You don't look so well. Well, you look a little pale.
Care for sudden illness by following these general guidelines.
Do your time, maybe?
Good idea.
Help the victim rest comfortably.
Okay, can I get you anything?
I'm cold.
Keep the victim from getting chilled or overheated. Reassure the victim.
Keep you warm a little bit.
Watch for changes in consciousness and breathing.
A little water, maybe.
Give food or liquid only if the victim is fully conscious.
Maybe if you, just took a few minutes and relax.
Ask if the victim has any medical conditions or is taking any medication.
That's much better, thanks.
Yeah, all right.
Hi, Doris.
Oh, hi, Ann. Take a look at this picture of my niece. Isn't she cute?
Oh, look at her. She is cute. This is an adorable picture. I like that outfit.
I'm feeling dizzy. What's the matter? Ann!
In certain situations, you may know what has caused the person to become ill.
Ann.
Situations like these may require specific care.
Ann, are you okay? Did I faint? Yeah, you did. But you lie still for a moment. I'm going to get something to put under your feet.
If you suspect the person has fainted, position them on the back and elevate the feet 8 to 10 inches.
There. All right. Here, I'm going to roll you over.
If the person feels sick to their stomach or vomits, roll him or her to the side to keep the airway clear.
Thank you.
If the person is having a diabetic emergency, give the person some form of sugar.
Okay, Paul. I want you to take small sips, real easy now.
Easy now. Just relax. That's it.
Michael. Michael? What's wrong? Can you hear me? Oh.
If the person is having a seizure, cushion the victim's head using folded clothing or a towel to make a small pillow. Do not hold or restrain the person or place anything between the victim's teeth. Remove any nearby objects that might cause injury. Remember, as with injuries, the condition called shock is likely to develop with any sudden illness. By giving the appropriate care, you will be doing all you can to minimize shock.
Just lay back. I'll do it.
Not knowing the underlying cause of a sudden illness should not prevent you from responding to the emergency. Because in any sudden illness, you can always do something to help by following your 3 emergency action steps. Check, call, care. Check the scene, then check the victim. Call 911 or your local emergency number for an ambulance. And then give care for what you find. And remember, knowing the signals of sudden illness and how to respond to them enables you to give care with confidence until the ambulance arrives.
Seems to be the problem, sir.